So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to my dining room, your living room, garage, wherever you happen to be. It's great to see you all again after so long. And apologies, really, that it's taken us so long. It's not because we haven't been able to have, because the last of these events was nearly 2 years ago. It was October 2019. It's not because we haven't wanted to, we really have, but we wanted to try to wait until we could do a proper live event. But it got to the stage where we thought, look, we just need to do something because that might not be happening for another little while. But this isn't second best. It's just as good. In fact, it's better in some respects because we have people from all over the UK and beyond who probably wouldn't have joined us. So in terms of the network and the networking opportunities, it's probably better. So, but as I say, it's great to see you all. Can I just have a quick show of hands? Who's here at one of these NCTN events for the first time? Give us a quick wave. Nearly all of you. That's really good. You've probably heard about it by all sorts of different ways. So I'm not going to ask you because you might have even forgotten how you heard about it. But it's great that you're here. So my name is Terry McStay. My usual role is I head up an organisation called Design Network North, where we get people together from all areas of design. But I also wear this Northern Clothing Textiles Network hat, along with my esteemed colleague David Ray, who's going to chat to you shortly. So we've got a great morning for you. I'm just going to quickly, though, with your permission, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my summer because it was really good, and for some reason I think you might be interested in hearing about that. So I'll just share my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay, so that's welcome. This is where we are this morning. As I said, that's me. It's great to see you. So I spent a lot of my summer singing, actually, because I'm not going to call it a choir because it isn't. It's just a group of people who love singing together in Newcastle and in the Lakes and in Northumberland and all over the place. I don't think I'm on that picture. I don't think I was there that day. But this was us so all through the summer, we've been getting together in different places. This was in Ennerdale, in the kind of western side of the Lake District. That was us just about to get ready to sing something or other, with a very, very small audience who just kind of stumbled by. This was on the roof of the Sill. I don't know if anyone knows the Sill, on Hadrian's Wall near Housestead. It's the kind of the visitor centre, and there's a youth hostel there. So we were there for the day and we sang on the roof, and it was red hot, as you can see by the colour of the sky. It was absolutely red hot, which is quite unusual for Northumberland. This was on Lindisfarne, so that was about 3 weeks ago, I think, where there were seals bobbing around, and we sang some songs. That was in Borrowdale near Keswick, just south of Keswick. That was us hiking through the woods, and in order to sing in a cave, there's this cave on the side of Castle Crag where a hermit used to live, apparently. So we thought, the acoustics would be really good in there. So we hiked up to the cave and sang a few things in there. So that was really good fun. The other thing I did, though, I was really quite lucky in that I actually had a foreign holiday, unlike most people. This was Newcastle Airport in August on a Sunday afternoon. It was absolutely deserted, but I wasn't complaining because it meant I got through really quickly, and the plane was only half full, so I could have stretched out and had a kip if I'd wanted to. So there were definitely advantages. See if anyone can guess. I know some of you know where I was, but see if anyone can guess where I might have been. So that was the end of my street. I don't think there's any clues on there particularly. No. See if you can, anyone? There's a big clue on the kind of right-hand side. That huge, very tall building site, probably one of the most famous building sites in Europe. Any ideas? No. There's another clue.
Andalusia.
No, but you're getting warm. I was actually in Barcelona.
Barcelona, yeah.
That was I sat there on quite a few occasions. That's the bar outside my apartment. My apartment was just in the on that block behind, and that was me enjoying one of several mojitos on several occasions. I took this because I went. Obviously, you have to go to the Sagrada Familia, which is an amazing place, and I didn't bother taking any photos because there's kind of no point apart from this. So there are these huge granite columns, but then there are speakers on them and wires and things, and I just loved the way they'd painted the speakers to match the columns so they didn't stand out, because there's nothing worse. I don't know about you, but there's nothing worse when you go to a beautiful old building and there's a big white speaker and wires trailing, and it just ruins the whole thing. So that was quite a nice touch. And they'd also use these big clamshells for the bit where you have the kind of the holy water in it. But it didn't look out of place, because really everything in there, the way the building is designed, it all looks very sort of organic and natural. So it fitted in quite nicely. I did loads of Gaudi spotting, which obviously you have to do in Barcelona. It was just crazy. So yeah, that was my summer. So I just wanted to, I know some of you are here, as you said, for the first time. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of kind of history, really, or context to where this has all come from. So as I mentioned, I head up Design Network North, which has been going for about 12 years now. And we bring people together to learn about and kind of network around a whole range of different design topics. We do that every month. And as I say, I have done for the last 12 years. In fact, the one last week was almost 12 years to the day since the first one. And I think it was in June, so it's called Rise and Design. It's a Friday morning. And the topic was clothing textiles in the North, 17th of June, 2016. And it was probably the best attended event we'd ever done. And most of the people who came along, we had never heard of before, which was good. And we realized there are lots of people out there designing clothes in bedrooms and garages and sheds, and on their own, doing their own thing, perhaps all making the same kind of mistakes, or having to find out things themselves. And there seemed to be a real need for just to get people together to meet up and talk and share and support each other. So myself and David, who I'm going to introduce in a second, thought, well, maybe we should set up some kind of network specifically for that. So we had, and these were the speakers we had on that event. So we had Bruce Montgomery from Northumberland University, we had Barbara there, we had Kate Dawson from the All-in-One Company, and we had David. And as I say, it was a great event, and there was lots of things going on. So we got a group of people together just to think about, what should this network be about? What should it do? And then we had a launch a few months later, and we had stacks of people there, some of whom are here this morning. And it's a network, which is people. It's not a thing, it's people, and it's about bringing people together and giving them the chance to share and learn from each other and do some networking, as we've already done this morning. One of the people on that photo designs rucksacks. The other one designs pole dancing garments. I'll let you decide. I'll let you figure out which of the two have those respective roles. But that's what it's about. It's about bringing people together from very different backgrounds just to share ideas, learn about new technology. And then we've had some amazing speakers. So we've had Mark Harrop a couple of times, actually, from Which PLM, just blowing people's minds about the whole rise of digital technology in clothing design and manufacture. We had Nigel Caborn, who's quite local to us. That was in the Northern Design Centre in Gateshead, and he told just some ridiculous stories about his life, basically. But we've had Simon Middleton and Kate Hills and Jenny Holloway and loads of other people who've come along and just shared their expertise, shared their knowledge, and it's been great. Sadly, that thing happened, and we actually, this event was actually planned for I think it was the end of March last year, and we were actually, I think there was only about 2 weeks to go. We were still debating whether or not to go ahead with it, but decided not to. It says postponed to later in the year. Well, that's what we thought. That's what everyone thought, didn't they? But sadly, it has taken a bit longer than that. But we're back, and I'm delighted that we're back. And I'm really pleased that Graham and Sally have kind of clung on and stayed with us, and are still keen to share with you all what they've been doing. So I'm delighted that Graham and Lucy are with us from Shimaseki, who are going to tell us about the amazing things that their machines can do. And then Sally from Recreation, who just has an amazing story to tell about, her journey, really. and some of the things that she's been doing more recently, which are just crazy, but in a good way. So we've got a good morning ahead of us. And then, yeah, lots of networking. So I'm sure you're all itching to get connected again. So we'll have plenty of time for that. But before we do that, I'm just going to quickly introduce, I'll stop sharing my screen. I'm just going to hand over to David, who's going to tell you a little bit about some other things. David, can I hand over to you?
Yep, sure. Hi, guys.
I'll just put you on spotlight. There we go.
Yeah, morning, everyone. I won't keep you too long. It's just wonderful to see so many new faces, actually. We normally, when we have the live events, we normally have 100 or so people. But obviously, there's been delays and people have had disruptions and whatever. And I'm not sure how many have made it today, but many, many thanks to those of you that have been able to make it. I try not to repeat what Terry said, but yeah, we did prefer to do it in person and ended up on Zoom, and Zoom it is for us, but it's got its good side as well. So again, before I start, first things, brownie points to Terry for keeping the network going for the last year or two during these terrible times, because the Design Network North side of it, because sometimes he didn't have speakers and he just would get us all in and get us all talking to each other and making sure we all know that we're all alive and kicking. Secondly, I'd like to introduce my daughter Anna, who's joined the business in the meantime. She's out there somewhere in amongst all those faces. I will just give you a quick resume of kind of past, present, and future, and then I'll get out of the way. So alongside the network last year, I was called into action by the NHS with the pandemic going on and the shortage of PPE. I ended up setting up supply chains internationally. I got 7,000 people involved, and we got up to 23 million pieces of isolation gowns a month for 8 months, which is pretty much filled the warehouses and filled containers around the warehouses. So if nothing else, I think we've got enough gowns to keep us going if anything happened again. Future Fashion Factory, those of you who come regularly will know that I've had a lot of involvement with the Future Fashion Factory. And if you need to see any updates or whatever, I'm sure Anna will put some links onto the chat so you can follow it up. Future Fashion Factory is a collaboration between Leeds and Huddersfield University. And we've done endless projects and had some incredible results. But as I say, the detail will be on the link. It's about to end the year 4 of 5, and in the meantime, we're overlapping it with the startup of a new textile institute, which will be run through Leeds University. So you can follow that one up on the internet. We're also working with Newcastle and Northumbria University, developing a new project on biotechnology and living textiles, which will seriously attack into the sustainability side of things and the helping the planet and making things circular. And just a quick note to say thanks to those of you that responded to research questions that we put out. We're still we've got such a massive response to that. We're trying to collate all the responses, work with the university, then get back to you for further research and things. Where are we now? We continue working with specific partners. We coach business owners of all shapes, sizes, from big international businesses down to startups and SMEs, which we've had a lot of success with these startups and SMEs. And we've got a definite focus on the post-Brexit UK opportunities. The big shake-up post-COVID is the supply chains are busted up all over the world. The big thing on Brexit now is massive cost increase due to duties and all the rest of it, which leads us back to our shores. So instead of nearshore in Europe, we're looking at opportunities for onshore in the UK and to upgrade and then develop efficiencies within that. So again, hopefully that will come off. We have lots of passion projects coming through again through startups and SMEs. And we're looking at the global impacts generally on the whole thing. So just to close, I would say, please keep talking to us. Talk to me, Terry, Anna. You don't have to wait for the events to talk to us. Just if there's something you want from the network, or there's some updates you want from me with the stuff that Anna and I have got going on, just contact me on website, personal email address, telephone, and Anna will be hopefully plastering all that stuff up for you to refer to. And that's it for me. I won't bore you any longer. I'll let you get back to Terry and to the excellent speakers that we have.
Thanks, David. We'll be sharing your contact details and the contact details of the speakers afterwards if they're okay with that. So, as David said, if you want to connect and find out what's going on, then please do that. Thanks, David. So I'd now like to. Before I introduce Graham and Lucy, can we do some networking? Do you think? So what I'll do is I'll put you into breakout rooms, so there'll be 3 or 4 of you in each room, and we'll just say 5 minutes or so, just a chance to just introduce yourselves to each other, who you are, where you're from, what you're doing here. Maybe find out that you could, you've got something in common, or there's something you could share, there's something you could work on together, or just have a good chat about what's going on, and then I'll bring you back for the first of our speakers. Is that all right? Right, off you go.
It was good.
Right, welcome back. Hopefully you've met someone amazing. If you haven't, there'll be another chance later on to do that. So now I'm delighted to welcome Graham and Lucy from Shimaseki. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly. Who are going to, I suspect they're going to blow our minds with what their machines can do. Although machines probably isn't the right word to use, but what you can do with knitwear. So Graham, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Just going to share a screen then. Can everybody
Yep, yeah, that's fine.
see that?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I just...
Yeah. Just bear with us a second.
Can everyone see just the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, we can see the next slide as well.
Oh, okay.
Or are you doing some of these fancy displays where you can see notes and things? Or what?
I think
that always frightens me because I just don't know what
plan.
people are going to be able to see.
That was the plan, but whether it's going to work.
Right, we can just see the slide now.
Okay, can you still just see the slide?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Can I start it? Can you go out to me? Yeah. Oh, no, you don't need to do it because we're okay. Yeah, fine, no problem. Okay, guys, morning. My name is Graham Davis. I'm part of the team here at Shimaseki Europe, which is based in Castle Donington in Derbyshire. With me this morning is my colleague Lucy Whitehouse, who's going to be demonstrating the Apex design software to you shortly. I would definitely like to take this opportunity to thank David, Anna, and Terry for giving us this opportunity this morning and to be part of this event. Of course, it would have been great from our point of view to be able to see you all in person. I do understand the benefits and the ways of working of Zoom have been really, really good through the pandemic, but there's nothing better than being able to show you physical samples and let you feel those samples and touch them. That's what we're all about in terms of textiles, that end product and the handle for a lot of people is very, very important. But hopefully in the not too distant future, things are going to improve even further and we can get back together and we can actually all meet, which would be great. I've gone off piste a little bit now because I'm ahead of myself on slides, but what I've basically done is put together 6 or 7 slides that I'm going to read through with you. I'm going to show you and I'm going to read through with you. They are just written, so there's nothing really interesting on these slides, but it's building up to Lucy's presentation. It's giving you a bit of background about Shimaseki, and then we'll have the presentation. I will show you lots of different products, which hopefully will be of interest and inspiration, and then we can take some Q&As at the end of it, I guess. So Lucy, do you want to just help us with, do I just go on to the next slide? Is this the next one? Yeah, can you just move that out? Okay, so over the last 18 months, it's obviously been really challenging for everybody, including all of us in the world of textiles. While companies had already been expressing interest and started to use digital and virtual development platforms across several sectors, the pandemic has definitely enabled businesses to reevaluate their existing ways of working. And we've seen lots and lots of interest from many companies of use of our digital software and technology. There are several companies who have now established themselves in the field of 3D fashion and design, including ourselves, but they are especially focused on the development of woven products. Their start point is always already woven fabric. Many of these companies have spent a lot of time developing their avatars and have achieved very lifelike appearance and movement of those actual avatars, which is fantastic. From Shimasiki's point of view, our 3D processes begin with the digitalizing of yarn, and that digitalized yarn is created from real yarn, which enables us to provide really super realistic knit and woven fabrics. These fabrics can then be turned into 3D virtual simulations with our own Apex software, or actually exported into these other 3D softwares if that's what's required by the user. So lots of flexibility within the software and the use of it. In addition to this, there is a lot of interest now in the use of whole garment machines, where the garment is knitted complete off the machine. This technology provides not only a sustainable, close to sale, reduced waste, reduced inventory, but also enables an upskilling of the process, of the manufacturing process. And so we now have the situation where Joe's very familiar. For example, I'll use Joe as a great example because Joe's joined the whole garment revolution this year and has been doing really well with making strides into the use of the machines. All the skills for use of whole garment is prior to all the programs for the machines and then running the machine. It takes away the need to find overlocking, cup seaming, linking after knitting operations. And as such, what that does, it makes it more interesting for people and removes that repetitiveness of those overlocking and cup seaming skills. Since the UK textile industry was systematically dismantled in the 90s, we've seen the bulk of all textiles goods produced in Asia. This, of course, is okay in some respects, as it has enabled emerging countries to develop workforces and increase their own wealth. However, there are a lot of negatives for this, and we are now seeing it with many of the things that's already presented above, from reduced waste, sustainability, carbon footprint, and all the other things that go along with it. That virtual sampling and whole garment knitting provides some realistic alternative ways of working to small, medium, and large manufacturers and retailers. Just some interesting background information on Shimaseki for those who are not overly familiar with the company. Shimaseki was founded by Dr. Shima in 1962 in Wakayama, Japan. He developed the first fully automatic glove knitting machine, which was really, when you think about it, the first whole garment machine, the first whole garment product. Since this point, the company has launched several different flat knitting machines, from conventional shape panel machines to the first commercially productive whole garment machine, which was the SWG back in 1995, as well as specialist machines for other techniques such as inlay and intarsia, which I'll show you some examples of later. Over the last 26 years, whole garment development and the experience of using whole garment has generated over thousands of conceptual samples and obviously a wealth of know-how and knowledge. The Mach 2 XS is the full gauge whole garment knitting machine, which really enables, with its 4 needle beds, some fantastic shapes and designs and modules to be made, not only for warm garments, but for other industry purposes as well. Our 3D design system has continually evolved and developed since its launched in 2007. And we now have the Apex 4 total design system, which is hardware and software, and our Apex Fizz software only version of the Apex design system, which can be loaded onto a laptop or PC and used by the customer. The following demonstration that Lucy's going to provide you hopefully gives you an overview of the Apex 4 and Apex Fizz design software. It can be used to improve the workflow and assist the pursuit of reducing sampling using several applications for knit, weave, print, and embroidery. Virtual sampling really delivers quality information to improve the overall decision-making process and provides more right first-time samples. I'll now hand you over to Lucy, who will demonstrate the Apex design software to you and catch up with you on actual samples once she's completed that. Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's good to see so many of you here today. So I'm here today to demonstrate the Apex design system, as Graham said. So thank you very much, Graham, for that introduction. As he's already said, I'm Lucy and I'm part of the Apex, one of the Apex design specialists here at Shimaseki Europe. I work with retailers, sourcing offices, designers, manufacturers and yarn spinners to support the implementation of Shimaseki's virtual sampling software into new and existing workflows. You'll notice today that I'm using a pre-recorded demo to introduce the key functions of the software and how they're being used in industry. However, if you'd like a personalised demonstration, please just contact myself or Graham or one of our agents within the world as well. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and start. The first function I will be demonstrating to you today is the colour variation tool. This tool is used by designers to update colours of product that sold one season with next season's colours without having to get products sampled to decide if the new colours work or not. Sorry, my slides don't seem to be working now. The designer just needs to make sure they have a good quality image of the product to start with. Here at Shima, we find that a good quality picture is absolutely a good quality picture from a phone is fine. We then use the tools of the software to divide up the image into the colours we want to change. And now you'll see it's ready to be colour changed. We can add colours in several different ways, like using the colour picker as I'm doing here, or using the Pantone menu, or the Achroma menus that are all preloaded into every piece of Apex, or by selecting from pre-made colour palette that can be made here or imported from the Adobe suite. Once we've selected our colours we would like to see on the product, the Apex can then render these colours so easily onto the image instead of you needing to adjust the colours manually by using the hue tools, for example, in other softwares. And these images look so realistic that we even have customers that use these images to make colourways of products for e-commerce platforms. You'll now see that I'm using another really useful tool, the colourway function. This takes a pre-made colour palette, as you'll see here, and works out all of the combinations and permutations that you can have from those colours. So I've got 15 colours in use here, and it's working out that I've got over 600 different combinations and permutations of those 15, which just allows us to make colourway decisions that we otherwise might not have thought of. The colourway functions work well across products. Although mainly used in the apparel industry, it could be used on any product as long as you have a good quality photo of it. Some designers also use it to recolour print swatches for next season, or weave swatches or knit swatches, as you see here. I'm just going to demonstrate how some people use it for print swatches. So for example, this one that I've just scanned in, I'm going to put it into repeat. It's a half drop repeat. So by using this triangular tool, the Apex will put it automatically into a half drop repeat for me. and it can be recolored as I needed, like I did in the previous photo. The great thing about this is that all of that color information is held within that one file. And so when I output the new images, all of that color information can be output with it, reducing the likelihood of the color being miscommunicated through operational error or it being written out manually.
Mm.
The final colorway tool that I want to show you is the material change tool. For print designers, this is a really useful tool as it allows them to assess their design, whether it's last season's swatch or a new artwork on different fabrics. Shimaseki's virtual sampling software is well known for its realistic knit simulations and woven simulations, and the basis of all this is the virtual yarn that they're constructed from. There are hundreds of preloaded yarns in the Apex library. However, say you had a yarn from a trade show that you'd like to see digitalized, then what we can do is use this yarn fixing device to fix the yarn. That then allows us to scan it in on a white background and a black background to make sure that the scanner picks up as much detail as possible, and then use the tools of the software to cut this out from the background. Once this is done, it's then ready to load into one of our two libraries. We have two libraries, one for wovens and one for knit. To start with, I'm going to show you the knit library. I'm going to enter the type of yarn that is, so the Apex knows how it should behave when it's knitted. I'm going to give it a name and enter the yarn count if I know it. If not, then the system will give an estimate based on my scan. And then finally, I'm going to check what the swatch would look like when it's knitted and adjust the gauge if I need to, the course and wale count, or the number of ends that I've used. So that was the knit library, but I could also enter it into the wovens library using a similar process. Again, the same screen, but now when I click check, I get a woven swatch instead, and I can adjust the warp and weave density, the warp and weft density, or adjust whether I want to see it as a twill or a plain or a satin. We'll now look at some of the further weave functions of the system, how to aid the designer and create virtual samples. Say you have a concept board such as this at the start of the season, and the buyer is asked to see a number of stripes or checks using the concept board. The Kaleido tool is a great starting point to create designs that you might not have otherwise thought of. So you can see me moving this line over the screen, and it's just picking up the amount of different colours on that concept board and creating stripes and checks from that automatically. When I'm happy, I can send these straight through to Weave Edit. Noting the amount of colours that I want to use. In this case, I'm going to have 5 different colour stripes, and also, of course, the warp and weave density for this swatch. And then once I'm in Weave Edit, I can then manually edit the stripes in the warp and weft. So they're both the density and the colour of each as well. All of this information can be output into Weave Stripe, so you know exactly how many warps you need to put in for that colour, or you could output it in centimetres or inches. I can even edit the type of weave that I've got. This is the weave library where we've got plain, twill, satin, different types of decorative stitch, or again, you can make your own. If you've got a design that you're using quite often or from a previous season, you can save it, and then this allows you to easily edit it, ready for the next season. Say you just want to add a slightly different stripe in there, and then use this information with the weave structure and the yarn to then create a really realistic simulation, as I've done here. Because at this point I haven't actually used any resources, I can then create so many different yarn and colour variations without ever having to produce a single swatch. I can also use the Jacquard tools that we have to take this image and convert it into a structured design, where the apex will note the different structures to create a nice tonal design. If I'm not happy with certain structures, then I can edit those, and I can also edit the colors. If I didn't want it in a structured design, we'll also take a look at how we could convert it into a color Jacquard design as well. So here it is as the color Jacquard design, and similarly, I can change the color and structure as well, and then we'll output it as with the yarn to create these virtual samples. Like I said, because we're not using any resource here, we can test out different variations of color, of structure, until we're happy without actually having to create a sample, waiting for the sample to come back from the factory, or using up resources for samples that at the end of the process will probably end up in landfill. Okay, so that was weave, but we can now do exactly the same for a knitted sample and change the artwork to graph data within a few clicks. First, we need to compress the vector data into the number of colours that we want to use. In this case, I've got 5, but for fabric quality purposes or for price, we need to see it as a 3-colour jacquard. We could combine some of the colours to make it into a 3-colour. And then here, by using this specific gauge change tool, we can specify the coarse and wale count, the type of backing, the gauge, and the resulting size. And you'll see that the image will then be converted into stitches based on that information that I've input. So here I have it as a 6 gauge. And if I zoom in, you can see that's been converted into graph data. If we think that actually I need more detail within this, perhaps I want to go for a higher gauge, again, using the gauge change tool, really quick to just convert it into, say, a 14 gauge. And we can compare and contrast the two. This could then be sent to the factory as a schema file or as a bitmap file for sampling, or a virtual sample could be made right at the designer's desk. If it's a structure or stripe that you want to create, this could be done as well. First, we start by creating what we call a loop file and add a stripe using the tools of the software. I can edit it from the screen intuitively or input the measurement. I'm using centimeters here, but you could use rows or inches, for example, and then enter the color information. Again, I'm using the Pantone menu, but you could use the Achroma palette or the color picker or a custom color palette. And then once I'm happy with that, I can then put it into repeat, noting the amount of repeats that I have, or just repeat it across the area. I'm actually going to use one that I created earlier. And then we're going to take it into the loop edit menu, where I can start to add structure. Here I've just got a single jersey swatch with a 2x2 ribbon, but I could use the pattern library to start making more complex structure onto my loop file. The pattern library contains 1,500 different structures preloaded into it. However, you're not limited to that amount at all. You can also create your own from scratch, or you can edit the ones within the library. However, if you're not familiar with creating structures, you'll see here that it's really easy to make a personalized, unique design without having that prior knowledge of creating structures. You'll also see that the basic programming data is being updated at the same time, providing a brilliant starting point for the programmer as they know exactly what you want to create, both from the virtual swatch and that basic programming data. I've actually got one that I created earlier that I want to share with you, where I'm going to combine it with that digitalized yarn to create a high quality output. You'll notice that this yarn wasn't the one I created earlier. This is actually one from our yarn bank platform, which I'll go through in a little bit more detail in a second. But you can see the high quality output of the stitches and the yarn and the combination that output brings us. Yarn Bank is an online catalogue of actual digitalised yarn from yarn spinners all over the world. This is just a snapshot of some of the spinners that we have on the platform here. Yarn Bank is completely free to use and the designer can go in and download this data for free. The method that I use to search for this yarn is by just selecting that I want to see a 7 gauge, and you can see there's 150 different yarn books on here, which I can choose from. I've chosen this UPW yarn, and as you can see, the yarn book that comes up is just like an actual physical yarn book. Only these swatches haven't been knitted and then scanned in. They've actually been created from that digitalized yarn and then digitally knitted. So using this, I can then download this and use it on my simulations, which makes it really easy for me to create multiple colour and yarn variations right at my desk with the actual yarn that can be sourced and used for production. Once I've created my swatches, I could then use a pre-existing photo of a product and a similar shape to the new product I wish to create and use this to map on my new structures or jacquard swatches. You'll see that I've divided this image up into different layers, and then I've applied a mesh to each of those layers just for the apex to understand how the garment should drape and the direction of that. Once this has been done, we are then ready to add our new swatches. This technique is used for buying and product development meetings to compare and contrast different structure, colour and yarn on a product instead of creating actual samples for that meeting. This doesn't just apply to knitwear, although I used it for knitwear here. But just like the colorway tool I showed at the beginning, it can be used across different types of product to map print, knit, embroidery, wovens as I've got here, onto any product you like really. If you wanted to work with your own virtual woven or printed swatches in 3D for cut and sew, for example, these could be exported, these swatches, and then used within other 3D softwares. However, for 3D knit purposes, we recommend that you use our 3D software, as we are specialists within the industry and it is based on years of Shimaseki expertise in knitwear production, and it produces the most realistic virtual samples. To start with, I use the basic shapes and then begin editing them using the basic measurement table like you would fill out for any knitted garment. The apex then produces a flat pattern, and this is virtually connected as it would be done for a linked garment and then dressed onto a 3D avatar, noting the fabric characteristics and the desired gauge. Because it's on a 3D avatar, it's easy to evaluate how it looks next to the body, and we can decide whether it needs further adjustment, such as maybe making it longer, making the edge a curved edge, or making it asymmetrical, or in this instance, I'm going to add a frill. In a few simple steps, it's easy to create this frill, and it'll be ready to dress onto the model again for us to compare to the original. On a 3D avatar, it's easy to evaluate how it looks next to the body, and we can decide whether it needs further adjustment, such as maybe make I'm going to add a frill.
Guys, we're just getting some weird feedback here of the recording of Lucy's comments.
Yeah,
Are you seeing that as well?
Someone had unmuted themselves, so
okay, no worries.
I've muted them again, so yeah,
cool,
that's fine.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So here it is with that beautiful frill on the front. And we can now lay them side by side and evaluate them both to decide which one we want to take further into the design process. Like with our virtual swatches, we can now evaluate it for yarn, structure, gauge, or without having to create an actual sample and use actual resources. When it does come to sample, the tech pack is also greatly enhanced, as you're giving the technician everything they need to make the sample that the designer has imagined, from a virtual prototype, the measurement table, the pattern shape, the stripe layout, and the yarn details. And the best thing is, if the tech is also using Schema, all of this can be shared simultaneously with the same yarn files. So finally, just for comparison, if the designer was to send a traditional tech pack with a basic measurement table and a quick sketch, often it would take a number of repetitions for the designer to receive the sample they wanted. This then leads to a longer lead time and a sample wastage. Whereas by creating a virtual sample at their desk, this is much less likely to happen, minimizing the lead time and facilitating communication. Thank you so much for your time today, folks. I know I've crammed a lot into the demo, but I hope it gives you a good overview of the system and its capabilities and the possibilities of how it could work within industry. So thank you very much for your time, everyone. I'm going to hand you over to Graham now, who's going to talk about some really interesting stuff besides apparel.
Okay, is everybody all right so far with information? Information isn't in overload stage, is it? Do we need to just have a couple of minutes break out, Terry, to talk, let everybody ask some questions on those bits first, or are you happy?
Well, we're gonna do that after yourself and Lucy have finished, but we'll have some time for Q&A before then as well.
Worries.
So
okay,
is that okay?
Let me crack on then, shall I?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so Shimaseki's founding philosophy to create ourselves what is not available defines its reputation for innovation, research, and development in textiles. Clothing has traditionally been divided into two general categories, wovens and knits. Knits are known for their stretch characteristics, and with flat knitting, unique shaping capabilities, items can be shaped to fit. The processes are considered especially suited to applications such as wearable technology, sportswear, and compression garments. Shimaseeka's seam-free 3D whole garment knitting technology offers lots of potential for product development and innovation in safety, protection, sportswear, and healthcare. In addition, by using various techniques, including 3D knitting, shaping, inlay, plating, etc., Shimaseeka knitting machines can blur the lines between knit and weave fabrics, generating interesting and useful shapes for a wide range of applications. For example, combined with the right yarns, the development of production of lightweight and extremely strong composites for the use in cars, vans, buses, planes can be realised. I'll give you some examples of the kind of products that manufacturers are using our machines for. In terms of safety and protection, in an industrial setting, police, security, firefighting, military applications where cut resistance, heat resistance, electrical insulation, chemical resistance are all key factors. All of these things can be realised using 3D technology and 3D knitting. Just met somebody in the small chat room who told us that he had some experience from, or plenty of years experience of working with the team at Clark Shoes. So this is probably quite interesting from Dan's point of view. So whole garment shoes can be created as one-piece items. So the whole upper and base is knitted, if you so wish. Or, as I'm going to show you a little bit later with some physical items, we can just do the upper section of the shoe that then is formed onto the sole. In healthcare, in medical and healthcare industry, where fit and comfort from elasticated knitwear is especially relevant, 3D whole garment shaping can offer great potential. I think it's an area that is quite untapped at this moment in time. If you think that you've got or you require support for a muscle, whether it's a leg or a knee or elbow, you go to a chemist and you get an off-the-shelf piece of elasticated material to put on to try and provide some support. Well, what if you could have something that was made to your actual requirements, made to fit, so that when the doctor prescribes something, rather than just asking to go and get a strap band to use, you can actually have something made that provides the necessary fit and compression to help your recovery much quicker. So I think that's an area that can grow, and we've seen people already starting to explore that. In terms of garments, well, wow, there's lots of things that you could start to investigate. Some things are on here. So decorative LED illumination, for example, lifestyle products such as being able to operate smartphones, media players, even medical applications such as heart monitors that can be placed on baby's head or across your chest, are all things that are available and capable of being achieved on the machine. In terms of automotive and aerospace, well, a lot of people think straight away that it's potential for seats, armrests, headrests, things like that. But also there's the infinite structure. So composites can be used to reduce the weight of the actual vehicle, as I said earlier. And some of these things that are being manufactured now using glass fiber and carbon fiber and all sorts of different wonderful yarns, we can knit to shape to reduce the need of that extensive laying up process before into the form, before the resin is poured onto the product. Again, I've got a couple of examples to show you, just to give you an idea of what that's all about. Home furnishings, well, again, falling back onto seat covers, can be made both knit and blended with knit and weave to strengthen, so we don't get so much stretch in horizontal and vertical direction, for wear and also for fit and performance. is all capable. Industrial materials. So I touched on it a little bit earlier, the carbon fibre, the glass fibre, high performance monofilament and metallic yarns, all can be knitted, as well as when I'm talking about metallic, I'm talking about wire. So, you know, you can knit or you can inlay wire onto machines, dependent on the thickness of the yarn and the flexibility of it, and create wonderful 2 and 3D shapes. In terms of other applications, the field of technical textiles, new ideas for fabrics, they're only really limited by the imagination. And pretty much every product that you can think of, every shape you can think of, can be achieved. You might need to do a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of changing with your your first concept, but you'll definitely get there utilizing the 3D garment technology that's available on our machines. So that's generally the end of that part of the presentation. If it's okay with everybody, I'd like to switch to another camera, and we tried this earlier in the week. It seemed to work okay when Lucy and I did it. I'm going to hold up some garments and some products and just talk you through some ideas from fast fashion, high street fashion, right the way through to technical textiles. And hopefully everything in between, just to give you a flavour of what is actually capable on the machine using the right blend of yarn and stitch and structure.
Perfect.
It's okay. Okay, so if I start with some basic forms, basic shapes that can be achieved on the machine. So this is just a simple jumper. It's a half cardigan stitch with the neck that's been knitted on as well. So this garment actually comes off the machine like this. So it's complete. We have to do a little bit of draw threading to remove some setup waste on the bottom, and we have to pull the ends through on the collar where the yarn finishes. But apart from that, what you see is what you get. So de-skilling those operational requirements after knitting is realised. And so for something like this is an 8-gauge garment. Give you an idea of the knitting time. That was just under 47 minutes to knit complete off the machine. A little bit more of a intricate shape garment. Balloon sleeves, got a nice stitch detail on it, different neck area, and a different gauge. That's 50 minutes complete off the machine. Can I just check in and make sure everybody can see these all right? Because it looks all right on our screen.
Yeah, everyone's
Yeah, we can see it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
A little bit more complicated things. So we've got a yoke detail and a grown-on neck. You'll notice that on this yoke, the patterning is symmetrical all the way around. We can do this because we're able to manipulate in the PGM part of the program and the development program to enable us to create that lovely symmetry on the jacquard. Just changing products. If I show you this one, hopefully it will show up on the screen. You can start seeing some like raised areas within the garment. So this is utilizing a technique called inlay. So basically what we do is we knit front and back and create a pocket, and then we lay yarn into that pocket. The yarn is a special yarn that reacts to steam. So it's laid in a number of strands, the pocket's closed, and then when you apply steam to the garment, it expands and gives you this padding type effect. So inlay can be to create a wovens, but it can also be used for other techniques as well.
Joe's story saying like quilting.
It does, yeah. You're right, Joe. It does. If I show you a swatch, this is a real extreme of the same thing. So hopefully you can see how great the padding is on this. And I actually can show you this, the yarn that's used to create that padding. So in other words, instead of having to make two separate pieces of fabric and put a space of fabric in between that's going to create that padding and then stitch across these areas, this all comes off the machine as one entity, one piece. So again, applications, I'm not 100% sure. It could be a garment, it could be seating, it could be, well, I don't know, all sorts of things. But just a little bit of an inspiration piece. On the other extreme, this is one of those type of fabrics that is a combination of a knit and a weave. So if I get hold of this fabric now, you'll see that even though I'm putting a lot of pressure on that, I'm not getting any movement at all. I go in the opposite direction as well. It's a really strong piece of fabric. So that's done combining the yarn that's used, obviously, but also the knitting technique. Same with this one. So different fabric face, different fabric on the back. You might like one side to the other, but again, it's a very solid entity. It's a very solid piece of fabric. All knitted off the machine, but a combination of a knit and weave effect. The weave is the inlay described earlier.
Everyone's looking very interested, Graham.
Good. It's good to hear. Just another example, complete garment knitted off the machine. This takes just under 57 minutes, but it's a hoodie. Completely knitted off the machine in one piece. The only thing that we're having to do here is put the draw thread string through. So we're talking about upskilling the process at the front end. So really having fantastic quality people to program the machines, get the best out of the machine, use the machine to knit the garments, and then very little processing after that. So de-skilling of the operation at the back end, removing those laborious, time-consuming, uninteresting jobs that probably there's a lot of people now that don't want to sit on a lock stitch machine or an overlock machine or a linking machine 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You know,
I think we've seen across the industry that the linking skill is a dying industry.
It is, yeah.
And
you're right.
many of the best you said that best linkers are 60 plus now. Yeah. There's one company that's very close to where we are in the Nottingham area, and the owner told me the other day that his best linker is 75. So it kind of, you know, it's great that people want to continue to work through into the 70s, but also it just gives you a flavour of what's coming up behind to replace those really skilled people. We spoke earlier about Dr. Shima and his. Sorry, Graham, we've just got another question. Yep. Zips and other embellishments are added in the traditional manner. So
yes, of course.
They are.
Yeah, we haven't got the zip feeder or the button feeder sorted out yet for the machine. Just going back to what we spoke about right at the beginning, we're on the second part of the presentation with Dr. Shima and the introduction of the first fully automated glove. The reason why, I guess, the movement from glove to garment went so successfully for Shimashiki and for Dr. Shima was that he took the glove and thought, well, if I remove the thumb, remove the two fingers, I'm now starting to have what's beginning to appear like a garment. I've got an arm, I've got a body, and I've got a neck. And that's basically how the generation of the whole garment idea came along. So just another interesting fact. If I take you to shoes, we have a number of different options to manufacture shoes. One is like this. So the tongue, the actual body of the shoe, all the way around to the base is knitted off the machine.
Speaking of like kids, really young students, some of the questions that they ask you are amazing and really unexpected as well.
Yeah. Okay, and this is the finished product formed onto the sole. So that's one way that we can manufacture shoe uppers. The second way is we make the shoe upper in this format. So fully shaped with the cuff area that goes around the ankle. And then the section, this is joined at the back to create the shoe shape. And this is how it looks when it's formed onto the sole. On this particular instance, there's been a loop been placed on the back as well, I guess for hanging for drying or just for reinforcement. Or we can knit in absolute complete. So this is, apologies. This is complete off the machine. So completely sealed, sole, and into the shoe upper.
What gauge of machine, Graham, are they?
So they vary. It depends on what you're looking to achieve, but 14 and 15 gauge are traditionally the gauges that are used for that product.
Right.
Okay. Just another example of the extremes that we can go for are using the inlay technique. So hopefully you can see this, but the expansion of the inlay yarn on this particular concept. And then moving into items, sports items. So sports bra, fully knitted, complete, off the machine. And it has its own integral pocketed areas to place forms. And I can show you that very well on the screen. There's actually forms in there.
Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah.
I think you can see it. Yeah. If you hold it at an angle, it's probably best. Yeah.
Not better.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned earlier about specifically sized supports for knee joints or elbows or just muscles. This is a good example where we've got different stretch properties throughout this item, and it's got some shape to it. So this is a knee support, and you can see it's been reduced in this area here that sits at the back of the knee to remove the amount of fabric that's there, increased it at the front, and then this, unfortunately, you can't really appreciate it as much as I can, but I can manipulate this fabric in one direction more so than in another, which enables me to understand that the stretch properties, the compression is going to work onto the muscle, not above and below the muscle, if that makes sense. So it's supporting the area that it wants to or needs to support, and that can be knitted to shape, to fit the individual person. We also can do, I'm going to show you this bag, but the applications that are potentially available for this kind of technique, I think are quite wide. So this is just a little clutch bag, but this thing's been knitted complete off the machine. So apart from the button addition, all of that comes off the machine in one piece. So thinking back, we were talking about earlier, you know, the work that the guys are doing in automotive and vans and cars and buses and planes, being able to create something like this in the right materials could be a way, for example, to reduce weight for the carriage of batteries. I don't know enough about it, but or other applications within the vehicle to actually reduce weight. It doesn't have to be a handbag. So just conceptually, the fact that we can knit rectangle, square pieces with a lid just is just amazing, really. I find it anyway amazing. We can knit spacer fabric. So this piece of fabric has got, again, hopefully you can see that, a different yarn joining the front and the back fabrics. A lot of springiness in that. For an insulation, soundproofing, it's a very lightweight piece of fabric again. So picking the right properties of yarn and incorporating that kind of technique, you're getting soundproofing, dampening, even probably heat saving properties as well. And then I said a little bit earlier about the opportunity to use LEDs. This is just an example. I've lost my little
Oh
tag.
no.
Just bear with me a second, guys. Bruce, could you just hold that battery for me? So for example, on this, we're using a conductive yarn, and the wires are running from conductive yarn to conductive yarn with an LED. And if I just make the circuit, you'll see that we get lights coming on. I know it's a very, very crude example, but it just shows the power of being able to utilize a conductive yarn within a knitted into a piece of fabric, and then sensors and wires added to that to enable some output, whether it be LEDs or sensors, for example. I actually have a garment here where a sensor has been, again, utilizing the right yarn type, has been knitted into place. And the idea is that we attach a sensor here, and it can monitor the heartbeat while you're actually doing your exercise. I also mentioned earlier about composites. So this is a form dome. I'm going to try and get this on screen as best I can. So hopefully you can see the fact that that's a knitted entity that's been resined into this shape. Yeah. And the piece of fabric that creates that is this here. So this is made in Kevlar, which is a cut resistant yarn. I think that's its actual trade name rather than fabric name. But if I sit it on top, you kind of get the fact that the shape is already made to drop straight into the mold. Now I'm told reliably, if you wanted to, or if you are creating those kind of shapes at the minute, composite shapes, it's about cutting strips of fabric from a sheet of fabric and laying them into the mold, hand laying them into the mold, hand forming the shape, and then pouring the resin onto it. Whereas with this, obviously, you see the application is much quicker and much more accurate as well, because it's in a single piece of fabric. We can do crazy things like this. So again, I'll hold that up. You can probably see the stitches. Hopefully you can see the stitches, structure. So resin treated fabric. And this is the knitted piece of fabric. So if I roll it out, there's the top, there's the center section, and there's the bottom section. And that's formed into a mold, into a H mold, and then resined. We can knit glass fiber. So here's another example. So a fully shaped piece of glass fiber that can be, again, placed into a mold and resin treated to create the shape. Imagine the weight of that is very, very lightweight. If I had to create that out of aluminium or some metallic material, I wouldn't like to think how much difference the weight would be. It would be quite a lot. And then, just as a final overview, I'll just share these wonderful shapes that can be created. So, saying to you earlier, you know, the machine can do pretty much anything that you want to do. You just have to think of it, and then we'll find a way to achieve it. So this is knitted off the machine, and the actual start point is there. So that's the start, and by doing fleshage knitting, it actually knits like this and then falls off the machine. Same here. So spiral knitting. And shapes, pockets, in a plasticized yarn. Okay, I think that's everything I've got to show you today. There are a couple of other little bits and pieces here. Happy to show you those if you're interested. But they're on much of the same. So just examples of fabrics that are very sturdy, very solid, been knitted using that knit weave technology to really give us stable fabrics that can be used for all sorts of applications. And then on the complete extreme, we have machines that can do really delicate fabrics as well. So
we actually just have a question about the footwear, the fully made up footwear.
Yep.
And how it's used.
So this one.
And at what stage.
Yeah. How it's, just say again.
So the last one, how it's used, what stage, can you make the whole thing, or does it have to go onto a footwear line at any point?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously these are all conceptual products that I'm showing you today. What you did with this afterwards, obviously it's your choice. You can have it formed onto a standard molded shoe. You could maybe, I don't know, apply some rubberized solution to the base to make it slip resistant. You could leave it as it was and have it as a slipper shoe, dependent on the quality of the yarn and the performance of the yarn, maybe. So I think really it would be a case of, what did you want to do? What would your end result, what would you want to try and achieve with this? Is probably the question back, without me trying to evoke responsibility.
I think we've got some more questions coming through. I don't know whether it's worth you answering them now or.
Well, Terry, what would you like to do?
If there are some in the chat, then by all means take them now, and then
is that okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Cool. Am I okay for time as well, Terry?
I think everyone in the room is still fascinated, so yes,
cool.
Carry on, please.
Cool.
So I have a question from Sonia. Just want to know whether these work well for apparel and accessories.
Okay, so accessories as in hats, gloves, scarves, those kind of things. If that's the question, then yeah, definitely. The same machine can be used for a number of different applications. So one of our what we call mini whole garment machines can be used to, if you wanted to, you could set it up to knit a pair of gloves, followed by a hat, a beanie, followed by a scarf, followed by, I don't know, a pair of mittens in different sizes. The machine can be programmed in the way, once the programs are done, we use what's called sequential files to then create an inventory, and then you could set the machine and the machine would take care of those things in like mini packs, really.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Graham. Do we do bulk manufacturing, or is it just machine supplies?
So we don't do any bulk manufacturing here. We are a subsidiary of Shimaseki Japan, and we're here to sell machinery and equipment. We do some sampling for customers, but it's limited and it's time based just because of all the other things that we have to do. You know, when we sell a machine to a customer, there is a commitment to obviously support that customer as much as we possibly can on their own journey. And it depends where that journey, that start point of that journey is. For some customers, they purchase a machine, they already know about knitwear and already know about programming, so are less reliant or needed for us. But for other customers, they know other parts of the industry and have decided to, right, I want a machine, I want to take advantage of taking control of my own production and my own development. And for those particular companies, then a little bit more training is required to get them up to the right level. But I think really at the end of the day, if we can, we will help. But I don't think it's fair to say that we are here to be either somebody's sampling department or production, unfortunately. I think the ideal person to talk to if you're looking for that kind of work is Joe at Knit Lab North, who's on with us today, because she's
both Joes are on
today. Both
today.
Joes are on now. Well, they're great. Yeah. So Joe and Joe, that's exactly up their street, to be able to help and support the development of a product and then guide into mini and then bulk production.
Actually, Graham, I was going to ask if either of the Joes would like to just take 2 minutes after we finished with this, just to introduce Knit Lab, so we can do that when we finished.
Yeah.
In the case of whole garment production, what's the cost compared to normal conventional methods?
So I guess you're talking about potentially the cost of the machine in the first instance. The whole garment machine is going to be more expensive than a conventional machine. That there's no getting away. That's a fact. It will be. But what you then find is that a whole garment product takes just as much time to knit as those individual components for a conventional product. So in terms of your line and your working, the cost of the machine becomes the most important thing. And of course, the training up of the use of that machine and the programming of the machine. Once that's done, those inherent costs are there and they're complete. So then you've got to decide what you're using as your payback on the machine to work out how much your overall costs are going to be. It's very difficult for me to kind of absolutely say a number, because it depends on volumes and it depends on knit time and the yarn that's used, because if you're using cashmere, it's more expensive than if you're using acrylic. So it's difficult. But what I would say is that there shouldn't be any concerns in terms of costs being relatively comparable with a conventional knitted garment, if you put the right structure in place and do the right business plan.
Great, thank you. Do we have a list of manufacturers in the UK who designers or people that want to do production could go to? From our point of view, we obviously have a number of customers in the UK that have whole garment machines already. Our standard process is, if you are interested in connecting and talking to one of those manufacturers, then we would introduce you to them. We don't give out their details to anybody. It's one of our policies that, at the end of the day, that's what we do, and we will make sure that if you want to get in touch, we will connect you. Just one actual question on Apex Fizz that I'll quickly answer.
Yeah.
Training on Apex Fizz we can do here at the offices, or we actually have online training now, where you can take out training for a year and watch videos, and those videos will give you a step-by-step guided process on how to use the functions. Or you can have a mix of both online training and face-to-face. Some customers prefer that because they get the basics of the online training, and then also some face-to-face training where they get to ask questions as well. And of course, we're always here and happy to help over email. So yeah,
that's brilliant. Shall we leave it? Should we leave it there?
Yeah.
Graham, Lucy, is that okay?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
A huge, massive thank you for that. I'm just going to put us on gallery view so we can all show our appreciation in the time-honoured tradition of jazz hands rather than applause, because it gets a bit noisy when people applaud.
Bless you. Thank you very much.
That was fabulous. I think you can consider all our minds blown. Knitted handbags, knitted shoes. I mean, it's just crazy, but it's fantastic, and the demo works really well. So the fact that we're not all in a big room together, it's not quite the same, but it was probably 99%. So
well, that's good. That's good to hear. That's good to hear, because obviously when I'm showing garments and fabrics to a screen, it's always really difficult to know for certain whether the message is getting across. And
it was really good, and in fact, it's probably in some ways better because basically everyone was right up close to it, rather than if someone was at the back of the room, it might be more difficult to see it. So that was great. Thank you for that. Now you mentioned Knit Lab, which was recently set up in Cramlington by Joe Lennon and Joe Story, two knitwear. I was going to say veterans. That's not the right word. Experts. But Joe, would you like to just very quickly say something about Knit Lab and possibly how people might be able to get access to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, we've been set up in Cramlington for about a year now. Joe Story, who's just had to jump off to another call, apologies, has been in the industry for 30 years, working kind of across the UK and in New York and out with kind of manufacturers in China as well. So Knit Lab was originally set up to support those designers, students and small businesses who wanted to kind of venture into knitwear, but didn't have the expertise or the experience to do that. We're also finding that due to kind of COVID and Brexit, a lot of people are looking to bring production back to the UK, as kind of that's the environment we're in at the moment. So a lot of the factories, and probably certainly the ones that you're working with at the minute, Graham, are extremely busy. So much so that they're starting to not have the capacity to be able to work with those smaller businesses, especially because when it comes to students and new designers and new companies, they're a bit of an unknown for a factory. So they obviously prefer to have those big bulk orders. So we are set up to help people, whether they've got lots of experience in knitwear or nothing at all, to kind of help them through that process, to help them understand about different yarns and what goes into knitwear and what's involved in prototyping and production. So we can take them kind of all the way through the process. Ultimately, we're here to help people end up with a small run of garments that they can use to test the market. We're here to kind of de-risk the process so that people aren't having to kind of put those significant investments into getting 500 pieces produced when they're not sure whether it's going to work, or they just want to kind of have that kind of early venture in. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what Knit Lab North is all about. So all the way through from design and yarn sourcing through to prototyping, programming, which Graham's team work with us really closely on as well. And then through to actually getting those prototypes off. But we're also here to help them through the process of understanding and how their brand and marketing works together. So they're not just leaving here with a garment to test the market, but they're very much leaving with a plan as well. So kind of really helping them set out for that kind of success.
Thanks, Joe. And
you've got enough for you, Terry.
And yeah, that's fine. And you've got one of those cool machines downstairs, and the software that you've got two.
We have two. Wow. Yes. We have an 8 gauge and a 12 gauge downstairs.
So if someone was interested in some of the things that we've seen, like knitting the shoes and the handbags and stuff, they could come along and investigate with your help.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly hook up with Graham in terms of some of the more specialized things like shoes and stuff to make sure that we can run them off on the machines that we have. Obviously, there are several different types of machines which all have different specialisms. But yeah, we're more than happy to host people at Knit Lab. Come and have a look around and see how things work in practice as well.
Fab. Well, we'll share your details with everyone as well
Yeah,
afterwards. So that's brilliant. Thanks for that. Thanks
No
for that, Joe.